Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, whether you're tuning in on the radio dial in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM. We welcome you. Also, those joining us through our online affiliates around the world, we're glad to have all of you with us as well. We're excited to welcome actor Gabriel Sloyer to our program today to talk to us not only about his love of acting, but what it's been like for him to show how that love has been able to pay off for him in big ways. He's been able to do some great projects. We'll talk to him about that. Most recently, you've seen him on shows like Narcos on Netflix, as well as, of course, the show everyone seems to be talking about these days, that being the show Power on Stars. We also will talk about what keeps him motivated and what it's been like for him to see the response from his fans as well. If you're just not hearing about Gabriel, we'll tell you at the end of our broadcast so you can stay connected with him. But Gabriel, hello to you and welcome to Conversations Live.
How you doing, Cyrus? Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, glad to have you on with us. You know, as I mentioned to you, I'd like to start off by kind of talking about the reflection of the work, because I think for so many people, you know, they go in, day out, just doing, you know, what it is that they love, you know, knowing, you know, that the payoff is coming. I mean, you've been able to be a part, as I said, some great projects, you know, over these past several months. What has it been like for you, Gabriel, to kind of see all the hard work paying off for you?
Oh, man, it's tremendous. It's tremendous. I mean, it's like a dream come true. You know, you put in all these hours, you put in all the years. You know, I come from a theater background, so I've done a lot of Broadway, off-Broadway, regional, musical, straight plays around the country, national tours, and then to be blessed enough and grateful that I was able to work in both mediums and make that transition from theater to the camera stuff. It's tremendous, man. I mean, when you're working on set, it's obviously a different atmosphere, but the reach of this, of the camera and of TV and film, you know, imagine playing for thousands in a theater and then playing for millions around the world. It's incredible.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned the theater, because that's one of the things I noticed when I was on your website, Gabriel, and we'll be reminding our audience how they can stay connected with you a little bit later. You know, I think one of the big things when I speak to people who have, you know, made a career in theater versus those who are, you know, just known for work in television and film is that, you know, in theater you get that instant gratification. Was that one of the big differences for you from going from theater where you're able to kind of feel the energy of the crowd versus television and film where there's this hurry up and wait after filming, and you know it might be several months, if not a year or so, from the time your work is actually seen?
Yeah, there is that huge difference. You know, I don't know if I think of it like instant gratification. You know, you're definitely alive in the pulse of the people there, and there's something irreplaceable about live performance when you see. And I think scientists have even studied this, of mirror neurons. You see somebody out there who's a human being doing something. You're a human being in the same space. You're instantly connected. You have your empathy, your compassion. You sort of can relate automatically. But it's you need a lot of stamina, 8 shows a week, and you need to. It's not so much gratification as it is endurance. I think there's a lot of endurance needed, and a lot of listening in a different way. Of course, you're having a conversation with somebody on the stage, but you're also including and inclusive of everybody in the audience. So it's back to the ritualistic nature of us as human beings. It's back to the Greek and Roman stuff. The camera is, I mean, it's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, you're working in radio, so you know what it's like in these mediums where you get to be with everybody at once, and you can be as intimate as you want, and people just lean into it. So right. It's tremendous.
Right. And in both scenarios, though, Gabriel, whether we're talking about something that's on camera or on the stage, you know, you do have the feedback. And I want to talk to you about the beginning, because it is your first time on our program here. When did you first know that this was something you wanted to do, to bring characters to life, to be able to slip into the skins of characters and to be able to showcase your talent through that?
Yeah, well, you know, I had a kind of a tough upbringing, and I think what I used storytelling for was just escapism. I mean, I remember there's a lot of stuff going on in my house and around in my neighborhood, and I was just hanging out behind the couch, sort of hiding out, playing with toys and action figures and reading Marvel comics and slipping away into that imaginative kind of matrix. And for me, it was always just letting the power of your own imagination and your own mind take you places. For me to be able to make a career out of that and to be able to encourage that and grow up and just say, yeah, you know, you could still do that. Those heroes that you play with as a kid, they're just as valid as any other influence in your life. So for me, I think back when I was little, hiding behind that couch, I started telling stories, and I haven't stopped since.
Right. And now, of course, you have audiences that are able to appreciate those stories. I mean, you know, I have talked to authors on this program, Gabriel, and they talk about how their craft can be kind of solitary in itself until the work is released, and then, of course, they're able to kind of get that feedback. What has that experience been like for you to hear from individuals who have seen your work, appreciated your work, and wanted to reach out to you to tell you how it affected them?
You know what it's been like? You know, you mentioned Power. The week that some of those episodes were airing, especially certain parts of Manhattan, I couldn't walk around without people. Oh my God, are you that? Oh my God, you're so scary. And I never say that. Oh my God. Or people you're just walking on the street. They go, are you somebody? I don't. Yeah,
oh, wow.
Sure, I'm somebody. Sure, are you somebody? Yeah, could you? Yeah. Oh, I know who you are. You know, that's crazy. You know, that's a dream for anybody to get exposure. And of course, if you take the time and just say, hey, you know, what's your name and where are you from and what do you like about the show, and just connect with the people who are watching it. It's nuts. You're right. You know, when you're in the theater, you get a sense of at least some inclusiveness, but you know where it begins and ends. And with this kind of stuff, it could be anybody, anywhere. Somebody's doorman in a building, and they're striking up conversation. That's great. I think that's awesome to connect with people like that.
Right. And I know that they appreciate your being able to connect with them as well. Gabriel, I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome actor Gabriel Sloyer to our program today. We're talking with him not only about his love of acting and storytelling, but what it's been like for him to do that on the stage as well as on camera, and, of course, to be able to see the response. You know, I have found for myself, especially this year, and, you know, we're celebrating our 14th year this year, Gabriel, of the show, and I thought to myself that one of the things that has been a constant thing for me over those 14 years is the fear of, you know, what might happen, what may not happen, and learning how to just enjoy the moment. For you as an actor, as a storyteller who's been able to bring these roles to life, how have you not allowed fear to stop you along the way?
I think it's funny you should say that. I think that I think fear is part of it. Fear is natural. You know, everybody's scared. And it's apprehensive to come on this interview and talk with you, Cyrus. You know, but you take the fear and you bring it in. You welcome it. Sit it down for dinner. I don't think you really ignore it and say, oh, this fear is I'm going to let it stop me, or I'm going to not let it. It's sort of like, yeah, I'm a human being, and I get scared, and so does everybody else. And I'm going to take that fear. You know, you look at somebody like Mike Tyson, right? And there you can really see the fear working with him. He's scared, just like anybody else would be, to get in the ring, and at the same time, he's going to use it in order to smash your face. And I think that it takes a lot more courage, and it's certainly it's a lot scarier to be like, oh boy, this is a tough moment right now. But if you can stick with it, for some reason it compels me in the same way, and I'm like, all right, bring it on, let's go. It's already an impossible career that's the odds are against you. So it's exciting, I think, to do something that's kind of impossible. Right.
Have you found that you have, I mentioned for myself, part of what I've tried to learn to do every day, and it's not easy, of course, and that is to enjoy the moment. How important has that been for you to kind of balance the success, Gabriel, that you're experiencing, and to remember that this is not the end of it, that this is just a part of it, that there's more to come?
Oh, yeah. You totally got it. That's the real trick, right? That's the key, is staying in the moment. I mean, to some extent, what I found is you kind of have to you kind of learn to forget. You kind of learn to just being in the moment means you're not being anywhere else, right? It means you're totally present to what's going on. So if you can learn to release, we're talking kind of about maybe more abstract concepts, but if you can learn to sort of release everything else and let it go, I mean, this is it right now, you and me, buddy. I mean, there's no accomplishments or failures or success or any of that stuff. This is the meat and potatoes. You keep focusing on what's happening right now, and you'll always be in the moment. So, I mean, it's fantastic to get success. It's amazing to be on shows. It's tremendous to get that kind of feedback and have your fan base blow up like that. But at the same time, you didn't. That wasn't the intention. You did it by just being attentive to what the work is and what's going on.
Right. And I asked you that question, Gabriel, for another reason. You mentioned, going down the street and people, stopping you. I think, for everyone, moments like that would definitely have given them the big head, and it's kind of taken them to another level. Do you find is that because you do try to enjoy these moments that what happens to you in moments like that when you are recognized, when someone is appreciating the work, it really just becomes part of the experience for you?
Absolutely. Are you saying that some people, when they get recognized, what do you mean they go to another, like they're over the moon kind of thing?
And then they begin to think more of themselves sometimes than they than they ought to, and it becomes more about look at me versus just appreciating that this is part of what happens because of what you just said with the hard work that it almost for some becomes an entitlement that this is who I am, and that kind of thing.
No, maybe on some level there's a little bit more of a sense of responsibility, not really entitlement, but for instance on Narcos, I'm playing this guy who's a real guy who fought against the Cali cartel, and I can't reveal too much about him, but he obviously has integrity in his life and a legitimate and authentic quest. I'm aware that his family's still alive, and this is some event that happened in American history. There's a responsibility to do that justice, and I guess when you get more fans, you kind of feel like it's a little harder to if you make a public blunder, sure, everybody's going to watch, so you feel maybe a little more like, oh man, it was great to meet that guy, and I'd like to kick some butt in the next role in order to keep it going and keep him feeling good and all that. But entitlement for yourself, I think you'd be missing the point. This is a service job, and people are working hard, and they want to be entertained, and they want to have some escapism and get lost in a story, just the same way I was telling you when I was playing with some toys. They want to go along for the ride. So I think they're just as much a part of it in a way, and I think you'd be missing the point going the other way.
I agree with you. Gabriel, let's talk about social media for a moment. That is another avenue that you've been able to use. What have those waters been like for you to navigate? I mean, it's one thing for you to have the person-to-person interaction that you mentioned, people that you're actually able to see, but now the world can connect with you with just a few characters. What has that experience been like for you to adjust to?
So tricky. Let's start there. Real tricky. I didn't have much experience with Twitter and Instagram and all these great things, and I've come to love it. I'm definitely a newbie when it comes to it, but when you're watching the show and you hear from the fans, there's nothing funnier, especially when you know what's going to happen next in the story, right. And they're going, "You killed his dog, you dog killer," and you get to write back to them and arf arf, woof woof. It's fun to keep the storyline going outside of, and I mean that's where the whole world is going now. With virtual reality and things like that, it's all headed toward away from what you were talking about with entitlement and toward accessibility. We're all the same thing. So to me, it's hilarious to read the comments as the show's happening. Hilarious. And these guys writing, they're so funny. They're so invested in the story, and they're real characters to the audience. So,
right.
You know, that whole kill Holly. You know, I don't know. It's just dark humor. Holly party. All that stuff is was really making me laugh. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, you know, let's talk about Power for a moment. I have to say, I was late to the party when it came to Power. I would see people tweeting about it. I didn't watch it initially, but you almost felt weird after a while, not knowing what these people were talking about because
you
you're
gotta
right.
know. You gotta stay up on it.
Yeah, for so many people, like you said, these are real people, and they get so invested in one character or another, and that's one of the interesting things for sure. I mean, could you have imagined, and you know, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, Gabriel, about, you know, taping something and it airing later. I mean, did it feel like it when you were doing it, that this was something special when you were taping?
Yeah, by the time I got on board, Power already had a huge following. It blew up during our season. I mean, blew up. It felt like, I would say there was something special. People were coming by on the set and saying hi and wanting to already get photos and things like that. And Joe and Omari and Courtney, I mean, the sweetest people in the world. And it was something special, but you can't really, you couldn't have been prepared for that kind of following, and it's so important. I mean, it's important to see, you know, for shows like Power and Empire and Narcos, and to see your own people represented on the screen. I mean, that's. I was recently in Asia, and it's an interesting concept because sometimes I've heard this. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that their concept of a hero, to some extent, was molded by Western cinema. They think of like a John Wayne who comes out, cowboy, Caucasian guy, and that's what they find attractive. And the thing is, unless you can see, oh my God, a Latino guy can be a hero, then otherwise you can't. Sometimes it closes off options for you, and you see it, and you're like, oh yeah, right. I could do that. I could be that. And I think with Power, it's just like a whole world where people feel represented, and they feel like, I could hang with these people, and so they're definitely real. And if you're not keeping up on the watching, you better, because everybody else is talking about it.
Exactly. And it goes back again to the power of social media. You know, we were talking earlier about staying present. Gabriel, I want to, as we wrap up here, talk about the what's next. I mean, again, has to be another crazy balance, right, of trying to enjoy where you are, but as I said earlier, realizing that there's more to come. I mean, what are some of the things that you look forward to being able to do when it comes to storytelling?
You're saying like what kind of parts I could play? I mean, I'm looking forward to these projects coming out, because this is the same experience we were mentioning. I've got a couple things that are, you know, Narcos, and a film with Vince Vaughn, and one with Lou Gossett Jr., and another film screening at the Metrograph this week coming up. So it's going to be fun to see that. But then you're saying what am I looking forward to what roles kind of portraying?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know that it's so set in stone, but I would like to see some. Just talking of heroes, that's the first thing that comes into my head, is some kind of like real Marvel or some really cool. You know, I was listening to a really cool guy stay true to his roots. I was listening to Robert Downey Jr. talk about Iron Man, and he was like, I never understand why when the guy gets his superpowers, he suddenly transforms into a really good guy. He's like totally clean, and he's got these Midwestern values. He's like, well, if Tony Stark is an arrogant playboy before he gets his powers, then when he gets his powers, he should be an arrogant playboy afterwards. And to me, that would be exciting, is to see some kind of somebody stay really, really, really authentic, almost embarrassingly authentic. And you're watching it and you're like, oh my God, I do that. And here's this superhero doing the same thing I do, and sort of cringe-worthy in the best way.
Right.
I'd love to do something like that.
Well, I'll tell you, the sky's really the limit, Gabriel, for individuals like yourself that are devoting themselves to the work and willing to do the work that's necessary. Is that kind of one of the things that you say to aspiring actors? I know they have to come to you and ask you, what advice do you have? Is that one thing you tell them about the importance of not shying away from the work?
Definitely. I mean, I do. They've heard it before, but I do. But you also have to be, like Will Smith is like, I'm willing to die. I don't know if you heard that. He's like, I'm going to get on a treadmill and I'm willing to die before the next person. You got to be a little, especially in acting, you got to be a little crazy. You got to be willing to do the work. But by that, I would take it to mean to the next level. I mean, when you're starting out, what are they going to cast, right? They're only going to cast you if you're many times better than the next person, because you're an unknown, Right. They don't trust you necessarily with the roles, and then the millions of dollars of budget at stake. So you got to be, I was hanging with my dad. He's Colombian, and he used to play the guitar, and he turned to me one day. He's an awful singer, but he was finishing this serenade from the Colombian hills, and he turns to me and he goes, Gabi, in this world, you have to die. You have to be willing to die for what you want and what is right in the world. And it's just like, and then he walked out of the room. And then it's just like, yeah, that's exactly right. You got to put in the hard work. And by hard work, we mean, oh my God, to the nth degree, if you want it,
Right.
There's somebody who always says, you got into acting to show us something. Well, then show us something. Show it to us.
Right.
Go for it. So definitely hard work, and maybe even harder than you might think.
Yeah. And you're definitely hearing it from someone who knows firsthand. Again, everyone, we've been speaking with Gabriel Sloyer. He's an actor who's been able to do work that he loves on stage and, of course, on the screen as well. A lot of great projects coming up for Gabriel he was just mentioning. So, Gabriel, let our audience know, how can they stay connected with you and kind of keep up with the great things that are coming up? Sure,
it'd be my pleasure. So the website is Gabriel Sloyer. It's spelled the same way in English, GabrielSloyer.com, or at Gabriel Sloyer on Twitter, and at Gabriel Sloyer Ceron, Ceron, on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you guys, and it's a pleasure to be on the show, Cyrus. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, look, I'm glad that you came on, for sure. It was a great conversation for me as well, and looking forward to speaking with you again.
Likewise. Anytime, my man.
All right, and we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. I want to thank our good friend Zach Tepperman for setting up this conversation for us today, and thank all of you for tuning in to another edition of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Well, make it a great one.